Today we are on season 2, episode 6, Falx Cerebi, which I can almost guarantee I'm saying incorrectly. Because at this very moment, Jax and Hale are also having their own kind of powwow. Jax knows that they're getting set up by Zobel with all of this and that they're just riding headfirst into an ambush, but nobody else wants to listen except for Bobby. Bobby is actually rational and thinks logically, which is rare amongst this group right now in the show because it's a lot of just pent up anger happening. A whole lot, particularly from the head of the table, but again, we'll get to that in a second. Jax and Hale come to a bit of an agreement that they are going to try to help each other. Hale is going to try to help by getting to Zobel and Weston first and arresting them, or at least taking them in as people of interest in the crime to at least hold them long enough for hopefully Clay to take a deep breath, maybe do some yoga, become zen, find his center, or at least just not do something incredibly fucking stupid because he's fully capable of it, as we see in a bit. And Jax is going to help him do that for the same end. He wants to try to keep his club from riding head on into that ambush. And I just find it unfortunate, and this is one of those spoilers, that we don't actually get to see this relationship get maximized on the show. This arc was clearly being set up for Jax and Hale to be the, lawman and outlaw partnership, a la Clay and Unser, that could have been a really cool relationship to explore. Because what we don't know is how Unser and Clay came to be together in this thing. Now we get hints at it throughout the series, and we see how Unser feels about Gemma and how that could be tied into his motives to try to help Clay in the club. We don't really know. We know that there were things that happened in terms of Clay and Unser being involved with JT's death and all of that stuff, but it's never really spelled out for us, right? We don't get everything just laid out on a platter. We didn't get to see any of it happen. But with Hale and Jax, we absolutely could have. And having them actually coming from the very first episode, right? The pilot episode, one of the first scenes we see are Jax and Hale. And they're butting heads. And they're setting that up for them to be like enemies, right? Hale would do nothing. Or that's a bad way of speaking. I'm hosting a podcast here and I can't use the English language. Let me rephrase that to say there's nothing he wouldn't do to get Jax and the club behind bars. And yet, over time, he and Jax, being two guys that actually grew up together in this town, actually care about the people in this town who took completely different paths. They diverged to go in total opposite directions. However, they come back to essentially the same place of trying to help the people of this town in their own ways. One being a man of the law and one being completely outlaw. And if we could have gotten to see that whole potential arc between the two of how they got from point A to point B on that journey, I think it could have been incredibly interesting storytelling to explore. But of course, that's not what ends up happening. We get a really good season of it right now, and then what happens to Hale because of Sheridan and all whatever and exact things happen behind the scenes. I truly haven't done all of that research to tell you with any kind of so this is what happened. I'm not a gossip columnist. I'm a podcaster that's a fan of this TV show. But I mean, Sheridan obviously did okay for himself with the whole Yellowstone of it all. So I don't think he's sad about it, but I'm sad about it because while I enjoyed the shit out of the show Yellowstone as well, and I don't know, send me some kind of message or something if you want to have Yellowstone be one of the shows done on this podcast at some point in time. I'm open to that possibility. But what I am sad about is that this Hale character really had some runway to be really cool from a storytelling standpoint. And this season, I believe, is kind of that that little tease of just a beginning of what we could have had and we end up not actually getting. It's also funny that Jax and Clay are both having cops on the same force try to track down the same dudes in the same town for the same club for the same crime, but for completely polar opposite reasons. Jax is trying to protect the club, and Clay right now is doing everything he can to freaking destroy it. So that leads us into a scene